the average fiat currency outside the Western world lasts just 22 years before collapsing. Meanwhile, the people who understand Bitcoin the least are usually the most educated and successful in our current system. And that's not a coincidence, it's by design. Here's the secret everyone misses. Bitcoin isn't hard to understand because it's complicated. It's hard to understand because your brain is literally programmed to reject it. And once you see why, everything about money, wealth, and power suddenly makes terrifying sense. Quick disclaimer, this is purely educational content, not financial advice. Make your own informed decisions and never invest more than you can afford to lose. Think about this for a second. All the individual pieces that prove Bitcoin makes sense are completely obvious. Housing prices going up forever? Obviously unsustainable. Money printing causing inflation? Econ 101. Need for censorship-resistant money? Just ask anyone in Lebanon or Argentina. But when you put it all together, something breaks. Smart people's brains just short-circuit. And there's a reason for that. Here's what nobody tells you. The people most invested in the current system, financially, intellectually, emotionally, are the ones with the most to lose by understanding Bitcoin. When you've spent 20 years mastering the rules of traditional finance, when your entire career is built on understanding dollars and bonds and real estate, Bitcoin doesn't just challenge what you know. It threatens to make your expertise worthless. That's not a bug, that's a feature. You're literally incentivized to not understand it. Your paycheck depends on not understanding it. Your social status depends on not understanding it. Your entire worldview depends on money working the way it always has. So your brain does what brains do best. It protects you from uncomfortable truths by making them seem ridiculous. But here's where it gets wild. Because while wealthy Westerners are busy dismissing Bitcoin, people in countries with collapsing currencies have zero trouble understanding it. There's this guy, Tony Yazbek, who lived in Lebanon when the Lebanese pound completely imploded. His experience with Bitcoin is radically different from someone living in Manhattan or San Francisco. When your currency loses 90% of its value in months, when you can't access your bank account, when your life savings evaporates overnight, Bitcoin suddenly stops being complicated or speculative. It becomes obviously necessary. The secret? Bitcoin understanding isn't about intelligence. It's about pain. People who felt the pain of currency collapse get Bitcoin immediately. People who haven't felt that pain yet have the luxury of dismissing it. And here's the uncomfortable part. As currency events spread and accelerate, more people are going to understand Bitcoin the hard way. Not because they studied it, but because they needed it. But there's another way people are going to understand Bitcoin. By watching their friends get wealthier while doing less work. Imagine you have two friends. Friend A works 60 hours a week in traditional finance, stressed out, barely keeping up with inflation. Friend B understood Bitcoin 5 years ago, works 20 hours a week, and is experiencing more abundance, freedom, and enjoyment every year. How long before you start asking questions? How long before cognitive dissonance gives way to curiosity? The secret here is that Bitcoin adoption doesn't just happen through education or marketing. It happens through observation. People watch others thrive using a system they don't understand yet, and eventually curiosity overpowers resistance. And honestly, if you're watching this video right now, you're probably already experiencing this, seeing people talk about Bitcoin gains and wondering if you're missing something fundamental. You are. But not what you think, because the real secret isn't about Bitcoin being digital gold or number go-up technology. Remember when companies tried to ban email? We're going back to physical mail only. That idea was dead on arrival. Once email existed, there was no putting that genie back in the bottle. Here's the parallel nobody sees. We might be at 1995 internet time with Bitcoin right now. When email was just becoming a thing, most people didn't understand SMTP protocols or how email routing worked. They just knew, hit send, message arrives. That was enough. Bitcoin's the same. Most people will never understand cryptographic hash functions or how mining works. They'll just know, hit send, value transfers, no permission needed. And if we're really at 1995 of Bitcoin, then by 2030, the objects in the rearview mirror are way closer than they appear. The shift from nobody uses this to you can't function without it happens faster than anyone expects. But here's the part that makes this different from every other technology in history. Bitcoin isn't just another protocol like email. It's an open source protocol for moving purchasing power across borders instantly, with no permission required. Think about how radical that actually is. For most of human history, borders existed partly to keep money in. Countries are literally designed to trap wealth inside boundaries. That's why maps look the way they do. Monarchies evolved into nation-states, but the fundamental purpose remained. Control the money, control the people. Now you can leave a country with your entire net worth stored in 12 words in your head. You don't need to smuggle gold, hide cash, or get bank approval. You just leave. With everything. This isn't just a neat feature. This fundamentally breaks how nation-states have operated for centuries. The secret everyone misses is that Bitcoin doesn't just change money. It changes power structures that have existed since feudalism. And that leads to something even more profound that most Bitcoiners themselves don't fully appreciate. Here's something that sounds like a benefit but is actually revolutionary. Bitcoin is almost impossible to confiscate. With gold, if someone's really wealthy, you can't know how they got it. Did they create value for society, or did they coerce, steal, and kill for it? Gold doesn't carry that information. Physical wealth can be accumulated through violence. But Bitcoin? If someone has a lot of Bitcoin, they almost certainly acquired it consensually. There's no other way to get it at scale. You can't invade a Bitcoin holder and take their coins. You can't murder someone for their seed phrase if they're the only one who knows it. This means Bitcoin reunifies wealth with virtue in a way we haven't seen in human history. People who are wealthy on a Bitcoin standard probably did something useful for other people. There was no other option. And this is where the implications get absolutely wild. Here's the civilizational shift nobody's talking about. If it suddenly makes more sense for everyone to cooperate because you can't profit from harming others, that changes everything. When violence doesn't lead to wealth, when coercion doesn't pay, when the only way to accumulate resources is to create value for others, you're looking at a fundamentally different civilization. Combine that with the fact that you only get value by producing value, and you have something that looks radically different from how the world works now. The secret everyone gets wrong is thinking Bitcoin is just money but digital. It's not. It's a complete redesign of the incentive structure that governs human cooperation. So here's the question that brings all of this together. The secret isn't that Bitcoin is hard to understand. The secret is that understanding Bitcoin requires accepting that everything you learned about money, wealth, and power might be wrong. Your brain has been operating under one assumption your entire life. Money works a certain way, and it always will. But that's actually not how it's been for most of human history. Currencies collapse, systems change. What feels permanent is temporary. The cognitive dissonance happens because Bitcoin forces you to imagine something totally different from how things are now. And humans are terrible at that. We anchor to what we know, even when what we know is breaking. Look, here's what separates people who get Bitcoin from people who don't. Willingness to sit with discomfort long enough for the pieces to click together. If you're watching this and feeling that cognitive dissonance, that sense of, this sounds important but my brain is rejecting it, that's actually a good sign. It means you're wrestling with ideas that challenge your worldview instead of dismissing them immediately. The secret everyone gets wrong is thinking Bitcoin understanding comes from studying white papers or learning technical details. It doesn't. It comes from being willing to question assumptions about money that you've held your entire life. If this video made you uncomfortable in a good way, like you're seeing something you can't unsee, hit that like button and subscribe, because I focus on the ideas that mainstream finance desperately wants you to ignore. And drop a comment. What was the moment Bitcoin clicked for you? Or if it hasn't clicked yet, what's the biggest mental block you're struggling with? Because I guarantee someone in the comments had the same block and broke through it. We're living through a monetary revolution in real time. The only question is whether you'll understand it before it's obvious to everyone, or after your move.